June 6, 1942, the Reich Chancellery, Berlin, 2:30 in the afternoon. Adolf Hitler sits at the head of a long oak table, surrounded by the most powerful military commanders in Nazi Germany: Field Marshal Wilhelm Keitel, General Alfred Jodl, Grand Admiral Karl Dönitz. The room smells of tobacco, leather, and tension. An intelligence officer enters, carrying a single folder, brown leather, stamped in red ink, most secret. He places it in front of Hitler without a word. Hitler opens it. His eyes scan the first line, then the second. His face doesn't change, but everyone in that room notices his right hand. It's trembling, not from age, not from illness, from something else entirely. The document contains 4 words that will haunt him until his death. All 4 carriers lost. For 6 months, Germany believed Japan controlled the Pacific, believed America was crippled, divided, unable to concentrate its full power against Europe. That belief shaped every calculation, every plan, every assumption about how this war would end. This single piece of paper destroys all of it. What happened in that room over the next 90 minutes was never recorded in official transcripts, never mentioned in public statements, never acknowledged in German propaganda. But it changed everything. The men who walked out of that conference knew something the German people wouldn't learn for 3 more years. They knew the war was already lost. This is the story of what German generals said when American carriers won at Midway, and why their just tells us more than any speech ever could. To understand what happened in Berlin on June 6th, we need to go back 6 months. December 7th, 1941, Pearl Harbor. For Adolf Hitler, Pearl Harbor was a gift. Japan had just dragged America into war, while Germany fought the Soviet Union. 8 American battleships sunk or damaged. The U.S. Pacific Fleet crippled. Joseph Goebbels wrote in his diary, "This Japanese blow is so hard that the Americans will not recover from it for a long time." The strategic logic seemed perfect. Japan would dominate the Pacific. Germany would defeat the Soviet Union by 1940, and by the time America mobilized its industrial strength, it would face a world already conquered. German military planners began operating under one crucial assumption: the United States would remain divided between 2 oceans, unable to concentrate, forced to choose between fighting Japan or fighting Germany, but never both effectively. That assumption influenced everything: submarine deployment, resource allocation, timelines for defeating the Soviet Union. All of it rested on one belief: Japan had bought Germany precious time. By spring 1940, German confidence remained high. Rommel advanced in North Africa. Operation Blue prepared for Stalingrad. U-boats sank ships faster than Allies could replace them. The war seemed to be going exactly according to plan. Then came Midway, June 4th, 1942. First reports reached Berlin. Japanese carriers engaged American forces near an atoll called Midway. Details incomplete, outcome uncertain. Within hours, the language in intelligence reports changes: cautious, evasive, no confident predictions, just fragments suggesting heavy Japanese aircraft losses and American carriers actively counterattacking. For Alfred Jodl, who reads hundreds of intelligence reports weekly, this pattern is significant. Previous Japanese victories were reported with certainty. This report suggests information is being withheld because the news is worse than anyone expected. By June 6th, the full picture emerges, and it's catastrophic. The conference room holds 18 men, Hitler at the center. The agenda was supposed to focus on the Eastern Front, but the brown leather folder changes everything. The document is brief, clinical, devastating. Forged Japanese fleet carriers destroyed. Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, hear you. The same carriers that struck Pearl Harbor 6 months ago, gone. Sunk in a single day, hundreds of experienced pilots dead, thousands of trained crew eliminated. The elite strike force that made Japanese Pacific dominance possible wiped out near an obscure atoll most Germans have never heard of. American carriers involved, 3 Enterprise, Hornet, Yorktown damaged and later sunk. But Enterprise and Hornet survived, both operational. American losses, 1 carrier, 1 destroyer, 145 aircraft. Japanese losses, 4 carriers, 1 cruiser, aircraft Kukich, 3,057 personnel, the most lopsided naval victory in modern history. Hitler reads the report twice, slowly. His jaw muscles work, his breathing changes. He looks up. How many carriers does America have now? In total, Jodl answers immediately. At least 6 operational in the Pacific, mein Führer, 3 in the Atlantic. American total carrier strength, 9 to 10 fleet and light carriers. Hitler's eyes narrow. And how many are they building? American shipyards are completing 1 Essex-class fleet carrier every 3 months, mein Führer. This rate is accelerating. Intelligence estimates 12 to 15 new fleet carriers will enter service over the next 18 months. The room goes silent. Japan just lost 4 carriers. America is building 15 to replace losses it hasn't even suffered. The mathematical imbalance is staggering. Hitler asks his next question carefully, each word chosen with deliberate weight. Was this luck, or was this competence? The room goes absolutely silent, because everyone knows the answer, and that answer terrifies them. Jodl's voice is neutral, professional, stripped of emotion. Intelligence assessments suggest American cryptanalysts penetrated Japanese naval codes, mein Führer. They knew the attack was coming. They positioned their carriers accordingly to achieve tactical surprise despite being outnumbered. American dive bomber strikes were coordinated despite heavy losses. Multiple carriers attacked simultaneously. He pauses. This indicates preparation and competence, mein Führer, not mere fortune. Hitler doesn't respond immediately. His gaze moves across the maps before him. Maps showing German advances across Russia. Maps showing Rommel in North Africa. Maps of a war supposed to be won through speed and overwhelming force. But now, there's a different map in his mind. American shipyards, American factories, American training facilities, industrial capacity that dwarfs anything Germany or Japan can match. And if that capacity is guided by competent military leadership rather than the confused command structure he expected, then everything changes. Wilhelm Keitel tries to redirect the conversation. The Eastern offensive remains our priority, mein Führer. Japan's setback does not alter our strategic position in Europe. The Soviet Union is our primary enemy. Hitler interrupts him. His voice is ice, doesn't it? Japan was supposed to eliminate American naval power, not delay it. Eliminate it, destroy it so completely that America would accept Japanese dominance and turn full attention to Europe. That was the framework our entire alliance depends upon. He stands, walks to the window. Now Japan has lost half its carrier strength in one afternoon, and America's carriers remain operational. Every month those carriers survive is another month American industrial advantage grows. Every month we fight in Russia without decisive victory is another month American strength concentrates against us. The statement hangs in the air because Hitler has just acknowledged something he's spent years denying, that this war will be decided by industrial capacity and time, not by willpower, not by ideology, by factories, by shipyards, by cold mathematics. Alfred Jodl seizes this moment of clarity. He presents facts without speculation. Current American carrier construction, one fleet carrier every 90 days. Projected 1943 completion, 15 to 18 fleet carriers. Japanese construction, significantly slower. Projected replacements, 3 to 4 carriers by mid-1943, assuming no further losses. American aircraft production, 48,000 military aircraft. German production, 15,000. Japanese 8-sex ratio, 3 to 1 in America's favor. And widening, American pilot training, 30,000 pilots annually. German and Japanese rates significantly lower due to fuel constraints and limited training aircraft. The contrast is stark, mathematical, undeniable. Japan has lost 4 carriers it cannot replace quickly, Jodl continues. More critically, Japan lost hundreds of experienced pilots, elite pilots with years of training. These men are irreplaceable in any meaningful time frame. Meanwhile, the United States has not lost equivalent assets. Its industrial system is expanding, not contracting. Hitler reacts defensively. He criticizes Japanese planning, calls it incompetence, argues Europe remains the decisive theater, that once Germany defeats the Soviet Union, Japan's difficulties become irrelevant. But even as he speaks, everyone can hear the strain, because the assumption underlying everything has collapsed. Japan was expected to hold the Pacific indefinitely, to keep America strategically divided. That's not happening, and everyone present knows it. The conference continues for 90 minutes. Discussions drift to the Eastern Front, to Operation Blue, to Rommel, to U-boat deployments, all the familiar topics. But underneath every conversation lies new awareness, new anxiety. The war is no longer unfolding according to German plans. The timeline is compressed. The margin for error has vanished. The enemy Hitler dismissed as weak has demonstrated something more dangerous than strength, adaptability, the capacity to learn from defeat, the discipline to respond effectively. These win long wars. When the meeting ends at 5:30, no orders are issued about Midway. There's no operational adjustment Germany can make in the Pacific. Japan's war is Japan's responsibility, but the illusion of predictability has shattered. The comfortable assumption that events will unfold according to German planning is badly damaged. 2 weeks after Midway, during a strategy conference about Operation Blue, something unprecedented happens. Grand Admiral Karl Dönitz interrupts a discussion about fuel allocation. We need to discuss the American question. The room freezes. Hitler's head snaps up. His eyes lock onto Dönitz. His voice is sharp. What question? The question of how we fight a two-ocean global war when our Pacific ally has lost strategic control of one of those oceans. The temperature drops. No one contradicts Hitler in military briefings. Keitel shoots Dönitz a warning glare. Jodel's face becomes neutral. Junior officers study their notepads, but Donitz continues. His voice calm, professional, factual. He's a U-boat commander who calculates ratios while hunting convoys. He's not intimidated by rank, only by mathematics. Mein Führer, every week Japan cannot replace those carriers is another week American carrier strength concentrates. Every month we delay decisive victory in Russia is another month American production accelerates. The mathematics are simple and unforgiving. Hitler stands slowly. His hands grip the table edge. When he speaks, his voice is dangerously quiet. Are you suggesting we cannot win this war, Admiral? Donitz meets his eyes, doesn't flinch. I'm suggesting we cannot win the war the way we originally planned, Mein Führer. Not anymore. Not after Midway. The strategic framework we based planning on assumed Japanese control of the Pacific for 2 years. That assumption is no longer valid. We need to adjust our expectations accordingly. Silence. 20 seconds that feel like 20 years. Then Hitler speaks. Quietly. Controlled. More dangerous than shouting. We will win this war. We will win because we must. Because there is no alternative. Because Germany's destiny demands it. Germany's will is stronger than any enemy's industrial capacity. Our faith is more powerful than their factories. He pauses, then delivers final words like a judge pronouncing sentence. Meeting adjourned. I expect detailed plans for Operation Blue on my desk tomorrow morning. Nothing has changed. We proceed as scheduled. The generals file out in silence. In the corridor, Jodl whispers to Donitz. You just shortened your career, possibly your life, Donitz replies without expression. Someone had to say it. Better me than no one. That night, Alfred Jodl sits alone in his office. The building is quiet, only distant footsteps from security patrols and occasional truck rumbles outside. He opens the locked bottom drawer of his desk, pulls out a private notebook he's kept since 1930, personal thoughts never shared with anyone, not his staff, not his family, especially not his Führer. He opens to a blank page, picks up his pen, writes a single sentence in precise handwriting. We cannot win this war by any conventional means. He stares at those words for several minutes, then carefully crosses them out, writes the same sentence again underneath, stares again, then underlines it twice. He considers tearing out the page, burning it, destroying evidence of thoughts that could be considered treasonous. But he doesn't. Because these words aren't defeatism. They're professional military analysis. They're reality. And reality doesn't disappear because you refuse to acknowledge it. He locks the notebook away, turns off the lamp, walks into the dark corridor. He will never speak these words aloud, not to his staff during briefings, not to his wife during rare evenings home, not even at Nuremberg 3 years later when prosecutors ask repeatedly when he first knew Germany would lose. Because some truths are too dangerous to speak, even to yourself, especially to yourself. In the months following Midway, the language inside Germany's senior command shifts subtly but significantly. Publicly, nothing changes. Radio broadcasts proclaim inevitable victory. Newspapers print heroic stories. Goebbels' propaganda maintains relentless optimism. But privately, in restricted meetings and classified memoranda, senior leadership speaks with new realism absent since early victories. Midway becomes a fixed reference point, not because of location or tactical consequences, but because of what it reveals about the enemy Germany faces. Alfred Jodel's memoranda begin incorporating new assumptions. He no longer projects American forces remaining divided and ineffective. He calculates based on American forces learning, adapting, improving coordination between theaters. Wilhelm Keitel's remarks grow more urgent. He emphasizes accelerating Eastern Front operations, achieving decisive results before American strength can be fully applied in Europe. His urgency reflects understanding shared by many. The war's timeline has changed. Every month without German victory is now a month favoring the enemy. Karl Dönitz becomes increasingly direct about Atlantic submarine warfare. He argues America demonstrated at Midway the ability to absorb catastrophic losses without strategic paralysis. American shipyards will replace merchant losses faster than U-boats can sink them. American escort carrier production will close the air gap where submarines operate freely. The tonnage war is unwinnable long-term. These discussions are never emotional. No one weeps, no one rages, but they are unmistakably anxious. The generals no longer debate whether America can fight effectively. They debate how long Germany can delay inevitable American concentration against Europe. Adolf Hitler's presence complicates everything. In conferences, he maintains confidence, speaks of destiny, dismisses concerns about American intervention as pessimism from generals lacking faith. Yet his behavior reveals awareness of deeper problems. He interrupts briefings more frequently, demanding production figures and resource details. He questions assumptions previously accepted without challenge. He issues increasingly specific directives about operational details normally left to field commanders. His need for control intensifies as actual control diminishes. This is behavior of a leader sensing the situation slipping beyond his ability to shape through will alone. By late 1942, Midway has become internal shorthand for strategic reality. German commanders must now acknowledge American power transitioning from recovery to expansion. The enemy absorbing Kohn losses and returning stronger. The mathematics brutal and unavoidable. Strategic memoranda reference, cumulative advantage, and irreversible decline. The side replacing losses faster will prevail. The side husbanding limited resources while enemies expand will exhaust itself. These are mathematical realities ideology cannot overcome. Documents preserved in archives reflect professional military judgment stripped of propaganda. They acknowledge Japan's carrier losses are strategically irreplaceable. American pilot training expands far faster than predicted. The technological gap between American and Axis forces narrows rather than widens. No one speaks of immediate surrender. No one predicts outright defeat in 6 months. But the language of inevitability appears, carefully phrased, indirect but unmistakable. Phrases about unfavorable force ratios, extended timelines, cumulative disadvantages, resource limitations versus enemy reserves. These terms recur with increasing frequency in classified assessments. These aren't words of men who believe the war can be shaped according to their desires. These are words of men understanding control is slipping, that events are driving strategy rather than strategy driving events. As Allied bombing intensifies and the Eastern Front drains resources without producing victory, awareness first crystallized by Midway spreads through upper ranks. There's no dramatic moment of collective realization. Truth settles gradually through patterns, figures, repeated confirmation. Officers continue serving, bound by oaths, constrained by hierarchy, trapped within a system permitting no acknowledgement of error until the very end. Many fight effectively, brilliantly at tactical levels, but always with underlying knowledge that tactical excellence cannot overcome strategic mathematics. April 1940, Soviet tanks are 3 kilometers from the Reich Chancellery. Artillery falls on Berlin day and night. Alfred Jodl works in his office preparing final conferences. Around him, staff burn documents. Years of planning, all turning to ash. He finds his private notebook in the locked drawer, opens to the page where he wrote 3 years earlier. We cannot win this war by any conventional means. He reads those words again and understands with crushing clarity. I knew. For 3 years I knew, and I did nothing to stop it. How many men died in those 3 years? How many cities destroyed? How many children never grew up? All because men like me knew the truth and stayed silent. He tears the page from the notebook, holds it over flame, consuming other documents, watches it catch fire, watches his private confession turn to ash. But destroying evidence doesn't destroy truth, doesn't erase knowledge, doesn't absolve guilt. Some truths remain, burned into memory, carried to the grave. When the war finally ended on May 8, 1940, the outcome shocked German civilians who believed propaganda until the end. But it didn't shock senior commanders who understood strategic mathematics. For them, the conclusion had been visible since June 1940 when a brown leather folder revealed all 4 carriers were lost. Midway didn't end the war. That took 3 more years, millions more dead, countless cities destroyed, but Midway clarified what the ending would be, made the trajectory visible to anyone trained to read patterns in production figures and force ratios. The generals who understood this carried it in silence, continued serving a system that couldn't adapt to reality, continued executing strategies they privately knew were futile. At Nuremberg in 1946, prosecutors asked Alfred Jodl, "When did you know Germany would lose?" Jodl's answer was careful, evasive. He spoke of many factors, many turning points, many moments of doubt balanced against hope. He never mentioned the brown leather folder, never spoke of June 1940, never acknowledged what he wrote in his notebook. But in his cell at night, waiting for the sentence he knew was coming, he remembered Hitler's trembling hand, remembered Dönitz speaking truth no one wanted to hear, remembered writing words he couldn't speak. We cannot win. Remembered 3 years of silence. In that silence lies the enduring lesson of Midway. Not about naval tactics or carrier warfare or code breaking, a deeper lesson about modern war itself. That industrial war is decided not by faith or ideology or willpower, but by mathematics, by production capacity, by ability to absorb losses and return stronger, by adaptation rather than rigid adherence to failed strategies. Midway proved America possessed both resources and competence, proved Pearl Harbor had stunned but not broken American capability, proved American forces could learn from defeat, adapt quickly, and execute successfully under pressure. For Germany, this meant comfortable assumptions underlying their global strategy were wrong. The United States would not remain divided and ineffective. It would concentrate. It would improve. It would eventually bring overwhelming force against the Axis, and there was nothing Germany could do to prevent this. No amount of tactical brilliance or fighting spirit could change fundamental mathematics. On June 4th, 1940, 4 Japanese carriers burned in the Pacific. But in Berlin, something else burned. The illusion that willpower alone could defeat industrial reality. The belief that faith trumped mathematics. The assumption the war would follow German plans. German generals who saw this clearly said nothing publicly, couldn't say anything. Because in Nazi Germany, acknowledging limits meant questioning the Führer. Questioning the Führer meant death, so they kept silent, and continued fighting a war they knew was lost for 3 more years. 3 more years of destruction, 3 more years of serving a system they privately understood was doomed. Because sometimes the most powerful statement isn't what leaders say, it's what they choose not to say. And after Midway, German generals chose silence. That silence told the entire story. June 6, 1940, a brown leather folder. 4 words, all 4 carriers lost. Hitler's hand trembles, not from age, not from illness, from knowing. For 3 years afterward, German generals write thousands of reports, give hundreds of briefings, issue millions of orders. But not one ever writes this sentence: we should seek terms while we still can. Because in Nazi Germany, truth was more dangerous than any bomb America could drop. The Battle of Midway didn't end on June 6, 1940. It ended on May 8, 1940, when Berlin fell, when the silence finally broke. And by then, it was far, far too late.